All right, good morning or good afternoon, depending on when you are watching this. We're going to keep this pretty basic today, and then we'll get into it on Wednesday. So, we just have some vocab to talk about, just some types of angles that happen when you have parallel lines cut by another line. When we get back on Wednesday, we'll go through more of this like complex stuff, especially when we're trying to set up equations and that sort of thing, okay? But for now, let's just focus on the vocab and the relationship that we have, okay? So the first one that we have to talk about is the transversal. So the transversal is not actually in any angle. The transversal is just a line that cuts two parallel lines. Okay, so once you have that down, so again, a transversal is the line or segment that intersects two parallel lines. So we have the same diagram for all of these words here today. Excuse me. So this is the transversal, the one that cuts the two parallel lines. So we'll be talking about angles that are both like above and below that line or on the left side and the right side of that line. So in any diagram, it's kind of important for you to identify which one that transversal is. Okay, and then from here we've got 5 different angle types. So when we have alternate exterior angles is our first one. So alternate kind of means like opposite. Exterior is like outside. So what these sets of angles are describing are angles, two angles that are opposite on opposite sides of the transversal and outside of the parallel lines. So once you get that down, we'll go ahead and just kind of diagram what sorts of angles in this picture that they are. Okay, so alternate, opposite, exterior, outside, and there's two of them, okay? And then these two angles do have a relationship. We'll see if we can figure out what those are. I always tell you, like, don't go by size, except when things are parallel. You could kind of assume by size when two lines are parallel, you can kind of assume that these angles are the same or supplementary. Not so much like the size of it, like it doesn't look like it's 30 degrees, but they look like they are the same or they look like they are supplementary. Okay, so in this picture, we're looking for angles that are outside the lines. So if this is inside, this is what I mean by outside here. Okay, and then left side and right side of that transversal. Okay, so two angles that are outside of the lines but on opposite sides of the transversal would be like angle 2 and angle 7. Or like angle 1 and angle 8. Okay, and now these angles, you can, again, if you're looking at the two red ones, the 2 and 7, okay, again, don't go by like the size, like, oh, that looks like an obtuse angle. Just know that you can see that and say they look congruent, okay, and they are. All alternate exterior angles are congruent. Okay, next one, similar, alternate interior angles. So again, alternate means opposite. Interior this time is inside. So we got two angles on opposite sides of the transversal. And inside the parallel lines. Okay, these lines, these angles are also going to be congruent. Okay, so when you're ready, and go find them. Okay, so again, this is inside, outside, this is the left and the right. So if we're talking interior, we're looking on the inside, so these sets of four angles in there, and then the alternate, one left and one right. So angles 4 and angle 5 would be considered alternate exterior angles, as well as angle 3 and angle 6. Okay, so if you don't have color, if you're doing this on paper and you don't have colors, just maybe off to the side, say 3 and 6, and then 4 and 5. So you can kind of identify. I don't want you like circling them because then they look like they're all the same. But just have a way to make a note which sets are alternate interior angles. Okay, and same thing with your alternate exteriors. 1 and 8, and then 2 and 7. Okay, 3 more. Consecutive interiors and consecutive exteriors. So this word consecutive here, this just means that one after the next. And then again, interior means inside. So we're looking at all the inside angles, and consecutive means one right after the next on the same side of the transversal. Okay, you might also hear this as same side interior or same side exterior. It means the same idea, okay? So we'll just call it this same side inside the parallel lines. Okay, and again, these are two angles. Okay, so again, in, out, left, right. So if we're talking about interior angles for this one, we're talking about this group in the middle, okay? And now the consecutive or the same side part of that group. So the same side would be 4 and 6. Those are both on the right side, but inside the parallel lines. Same thing with 3 and 5. Those are both on the left side and inside the parallel lines. Now here's where I'm saying, like, you can assume that they're either congruent or supplementary by how they look, okay? Here and here, if we're talking about 4 and 6, okay, 4 definitely looks acute, 6 definitely looks obtuse. So they're not going to be the same or equal, but what this relationship is these are supplementary. Okay, now what does supplementary mean? It adds to 180. Okay, so again, if you don't have colors, just off the side, say 4 and 6, and then 3 and 5, so you know you could reference back as to what these are. Okay, so consecutive exterior angles, same idea as consecutive interiors, but these guys are going to be 2 angles on the same side of the transversal. And this time outside the parallel lines. Okay, so outside, and then here's our transversal. So outside, so we're only looking at 1 and 2, 7 and 8, but they need to be on the same side. So the only ones that are on the same side would be 1 and 7. They're both on the left and they're both outside the parallel lines. Same thing with 2 and 8. 1 and 7, 2 and 8. Okay, and again, these are supplementary. Which means they add to equal 180. Okay, if I'm going too fast, just pause the video, get your notes written down. Okay, and then last one we have today is the corresponding angles. So corresponding angles just means in the big picture, these are 2 angles that are in the same place, like the same position, but on different parallel lines. Okay, so here's what I mean by that. Now, in our picture that we only have 2 parallel lines. A and B are parallel. Okay, so you could have 7 parallel lines cut by a transversal. It's the same idea here. Okay, so when you have parallel lines and they're cut by a transversal, you kind of make this box of 4 angles. Okay, so what corresponding means, think about just like in that box. Okay, angle 1 here is in that top left-hand side of that box. So in the angle that's in the top left-hand side in the bottom box would be angle 5. So angle 1 and angle 5 are corresponding. Okay, angle 2 is in the same position as angle 6. They're both in that top right section of the box. So 2 and 6 are corresponding. 3 is in the same position as 7. And then last but certainly not least, 4 and 8. Okay, so just same position, different parallel line. So again, sometimes it's helpful to like box up those angles when you're looking for corresponding, and then that way you can kind of see the placement of those. The relationship with corresponding angles is that they are congruent. So the only ones that are supplementary without, being linear pairs or angles that are next to each other would be your consecutive interiors and exteriors. Everything else is just congruent. Okay. So what I'd like you guys to do now is there's a 2-point not 2 point, sorry, a 1.3 practice in Delta Math. Okay, work on that today, and then we'll touch base with you on Wednesday. And let me know if you have any questions as you're working through it. It's going to go through just like angle basics again. So it's going to talk about vertical angles and supplementary angles, but there should be no equation solving on it. It's just finding measurements. So just numbers. We'll get into equations on Wednesday. I hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you on Wednesday.